and prevent a lot complications for COVID. And for those who are unfortunately infected with COVID virus, please seek proper medical care. So now coming out to our feature speaker today, when we're meeting our writers, we have our CEO Wang Benrong. Uh, we have read a little bit of their sharing earlier. We have a lot of feedbacks coming in, and very grateful for their examples, and very grateful that when one of our listeners was in Hualien, they were able to interact with them in person very closely. And from Canada, this is a praise for me that we're all walking forward. And from a lot of our YouTube feedbacks, whether it is regarding our producers or the sharing earlier. So from so this is the title of the book in Chinese. These 8 words sounds exactly the same, but just looking at it, you can feel like there's a lot of knowledge in this book. And I have a question for our CEO, where the English title is so simple, Brain Mind and Universe, but how do you develop this? How do you write this book when it's so full of intelligence? I would like to share with you from one of our team members who took a break for 3 years because of his changing schedule, his work schedule. So finally, after 3 years, he came back and wrote this introduction. He read the book, and we're very grateful and very truly moved by how dedicated that he is to writing this introduction. And this is our graphics team. And it's also the CEO is one that wrote one of our intros in our book. As you know, that CEO, when he was in Tzu Hospital, he would always work on a Wednesday, so he couldn't come in person. But after leaving the medical mission and joining the education mission, he's able to come and join us for a number of years now in person. And he usually always come in person. So first, I'd like to share with you this video here. This is a conference, but he's also shared this in the book here about our silent mentors. This is a very important class for them. Our silent mentor program is a active training of their professionalism as well as their humanistic aspects, and being respectful to the silent mentor for their giving has always been an ultimate display of respect. Now, today in history, we know that our CEO, how he come to Tzu, and this is the first when the first superintendent of the hospital, Du Shimian, during the groundbreaking ceremony of Tzu Hospital. At the time, was in the terminal of his liver cancer and only had about 3 months to live. But still, Master entrusted him with the responsibility. Well, none of us know when this his life will end, but we don't know. But let's just focus on today and work on getting today's things done. And he have personally recruited the doctors to the Tzu Hospital to find talent and recruit new talents. When he saw me, he asked me if I could help in Hualien just once a week. And I was really inspired by him at that time and immediately uh, accepted his invitation. So looking back and see how young he was, and even now he's still looking pretty young. And from here we have the doctor from the teachers from the Teacher Association, because this is the CEO of the Education Mission. So our first question that I mentioned earlier, that from English it seems rather simple. Then how did you created these 8 Chinese words? This book, when we had our talk with Master has given this book as a present for all of us because it's new on the market. So for those who does not have this book, then we will have it prepared for you. If you really like it, then you're welcome to take a copy after listening to this our CEO's talk and sharing. So fortunately, we have two writers are joining us from abroad. One is from the U.S., Sister Zhang Yuanling, and she said, unfortunately, she cannot be here today because she's at the certification ceremony. And there's also another a writer who are here. So how do I accept, how do we welcome this book? Well, whether I understand it or not, what I do is just to read it from cover to cover. And when you open this book and found something that you don't quite understand, don't feel that that's because you don't know, that you didn't learn enough. Because this book could be good and it could be bad. It could be good because I'm very happy to have received this book. But the bad part is you may not understand what exactly was written in this book. So reading this book, it takes time and it takes a lot of patience. And this is from the introduction in the book. And I find that the most interesting part is on page 13, when the writer shared that many years ago when he was in the dormitories with the CEO and found that our CEO being very intelligent, and so he had a thought. So if he could see the neural connections within his brain, then it will definitely be a wondrous roadmap to the world of intelligence. And I'm really amazed by how well they were able to piece the words together. So this book, and on page 29, this book may seem rather sad. There are 4 big chapters, 24 subchapters connecting the cosmetology with Buddhism and filled with all sorts of vocabularies. You can enjoy the beauty of how pure the words are. And when you're reading these words, you'll find how intelligent he is or how smart he is. And out of the references, four of them were written by our CEO previously. So he's been able to reference his previous work. So this book offers as a summary of all this information. And all there's also uh, four TV dramas that are mentioned in this book, and I'm very joyful because out of all the four that are mentioned, I have watched three of them already. The only one I did not watch was Everything Everywhere All at Once, and unfortunately, that's not on my Netflix, so I need to find time to watch it. When you open this book, you can see there on page 158. We talked about the the Earth, its positions, and it's just so coincidentally, uh, the Earth is just at the right place and that to nurture life. And when I saw the words that says that it was picked by the heavens, then I really understand, and I felt that I understand what you mean. There are three pages in there that mention about the Venerable Master in Shun, especially during the time when he was when he's unconscious, doing the brainwave testing monitoring, we found that something very different. Even in the morning when he was passed away, his when Master Inshun was is passing away due to heart failure, his brains are still actively, consciously processing. So he was really amazed by how even at this stage of his life, his brain is still working as if he was awake. And on page 213, he was written in English. It's very and he put it simply that way. So we all know that wife is very important. If you take care of your wife, then your life will be happy. So ultimately, there's about 20 pages where I feel like it is when I'm able to be most understanding to that I can understand the most because he was writing in reference to the Sutra of innumerable meanings. So if you have this book, then don't take another copy. But for those who don't have a copy, take this opportunity, take it home, and spend the time. You may not understand it, but you will definitely benefit a lot. So let's give a round of applause to welcome our CEO to share with us today. Dear Masters, Apple Masters, and Teacher Mei as well as our brothers and sisters that are present. This is the seventh book I have published, and publishing book is like giving birth. After publishing a book, I always tell myself I never wanted to publish another book again, but one after another they keep coming. The previous book was what was a smooth birth. It only took me about 3 months, but this one was more of a difficult birth because it is a mixture of science of uh, of anthropology, and I have to ask all my friends from these fields to write the introduction, and it's also and the start of this book came from brother Yao, who gave me this mission when he asked me during one of the talks I have given. It's about the science in Buddhism as well as the Buddhism in science. And as we may have known that there's very simple that about heart and matters all together, the empty and being full are the same versus the in physics we talked about how time and space are together as one, where matters and energy will not diminish. So looking at the world through different aspects, whether it is through physics or through a more spiritual approach, it is about seeing through uh, the what's in front of you and see to the truth. So the first chapter is talking about time and space, uh, such as a broad view of the theory of relativity. The second chapter is about our human society and the world. Third chapter is a reference about neurology and Buddhism. And lastly, is about the difficulties that we face in our lives. As we all heard, there are 20 different difficulties that we may face in our world. So how do we change ourselves to make the difficult easy? So first, coming to introduction, we're introducing about the time and space. The first was based on 3 words, which is about the mathematical zero and the Buddhism aspect of emptiness and the physical thought of nothing. These are the greatest intelligence in the human society, and it's also the birth of all the things that's to come. The second subchapter was about the from the Big Bang theory, and it's only become widely accepted in the past few decades. As we know that the universe was created from the Big Bang when the burst of energy expanded the universe and created what we know today. From the high temperature, the extreme high temperatures, matter was born, and now that the world is about that we know that the universe is constantly expanding. Now we know that the universe was formed about 13.7 billion years ago, but it's still constantly expanding. And a galaxy may consist of 200 billion stars, and sun is only one of them. And doing the form in relatively speaking, our sun and earth are still very young compared to the formation of the universe. Um, Now, looking at the pictures earlier, we see the different aspects, different phases of our lives. Now, when I still have dark hair to now white hair and soon to be no hair. And when we talk about the universe in a Buddhism aspect, it consists of both time and space. From the Tathagata understanding, the the form and the formless are all matters of emptiness. But from there, the emptiness, is wonders existence. So as we know now that from the Big Bang Theory, that everything that we see nowadays comes from the emptiness when there's from before when there's nothing. And we know that Earth is spinning on its own at 1700 kilometers per hour and circling the sun. But with this fast speed, we become but even though it's at this fast speed, we are unaware of it. And we know that the Earth is constantly spinning around the sun. All the other planets are spinning around the sun or their respective stars. So the heavenly bodies are all working together, have its own order, and circling endlessly. From Buddhism understanding, we see that a minor dust can turn the Dharma wheel, and from a small speck, we see 10 sides of the Buddhism land. So coming back to the physics, we see the true natures. There's a unsolvable time and space, an inseparable matter and energy, a the in intangible ways and matter as well as in invisible forces that are working all together. So that's there are subchapters. In the theory of relativity, as Einstein told us, has mentioned to us that as the speed of light remain constant, time and space is not. As we know, energy equals the elements, and time equals space. Time is a space, and when it's active, and space is time standing still. In the quantum, on the quantum scales, we see different elements. Our cells maybe 10 to the negative 5 millimeters, but coming down to even smaller particles and even up to our atom. In our atom, we know there are electrons, there are neutrons, protons, and a nucleus. But majority of that is consistent of empty space, even though despite they're so small together. Now, in the atomic nucleus, I will not talk too much about the in detail, but we know there are three quarks. There are very tiny particles in that makes up an atom. In the Lotus Sutra, which there is mention of the innumerable dust-like trilocosms. And when we are closely reading the Suragama Sutra, you can observe how the microdust to the magnitude of Paramanu and then realizes emptiness. And from this emptiness will born matter and its form. So we see Buddhism is quite an amazing understanding where it brings from the understanding of emptiness and talk about near emptiness to dust-like dust-like particles, and coming into the Heart Sutra mentioning that form and emptiness are alike. In Newton's gravitational theory have shed light about our sky and the earth. When Maxwell's electromagnetic theory brings light to light and electricity. When Einstein's relativity brought together time and space, energy and matter, and quantum mechanics brings in our waves and particles, the empty and matter and antimatter. So the scientists were able to prove to us that many of the things that may seem completely different were actually related, and these we can see from in the Buddhism sutras how these thoughts were mentioned so early on. Our second chapter, we talked about a world, the human world and the world. We know that life developed because of the distance between Earth and the Sun, and that special relationship. And we mentioned about the Sun, such as the degrees from the Sun and how the Earth developed and the evolution of humans, as well as the the relativity of human society. For example, when we come into our cities, we develop a different type of relationship with each others. And in the world, where there's also matters, how we interact. And lastly, we talked about the new human society and the multiverse that we may be experiencing in the future. So what is our self? And the little self is the survival. Having desire, having fear is the basis of human survival. In in human nature is to preserve themselves, whether it is to defend or constantly uh, enriching and growing ourselves. As we see so many politicians on TVs, they're always constantly enlarging their influence. So we see them being very focused, being very developed, but also to develop on dwelling their influence and becoming more afflicted and attached. And we also experience different thoughts such as our greed, our anger, ignorance, arrogance, and the afflictions that are associated with it. The bigger self is us in this society, as we all know that humans are social animals; they cannot survive on their own. So coming together, we must share this responsibilities to build the societal relationship and benefit from the power of the group. So our abilities and our powers are not isolated, cannot be independent on their own, but rather it is embedded in the organization and the societal system. So that we always constantly reminding ourselves that as what we take from society, we must use back to the society. But even if in the bigger concept of ourselves, we still experience dust like afflictions, such as a conflict of interest or values when we meet from people when we meet different people. There are interactions coming together and going apart, and even arguments. So if you don't have a rich understanding of the world in both knowledge and wisdom, we'll have an endless amount of afflictions. For human DNA, as we know that there is really no apex of apex animals. In our DNA, it is about love. Loving others is an extension or a display of loving ourselves. Benefiting others is a way of benefiting ourselves. We cannot completely just benefit ourselves if we don't help the people around us.
爱他，其
So
可以
that
来个
is a
也
key
是一个
point.
自爱，利他也是一个自利的达
On the
成方
third
式。
chapter, we
这是
talk
人类的
about
文明特质的一个关键。
neurology and Buddhism. I
第
am
三节
a
有时候会提
pediatric
到我们神
neurologist,
经跟喉经的部分哈。那因为我是
and so
小
I'm
儿神
able to
经科
bring a
医
lot of
师哈，所以
my
我这边就常常会
understandings,
比较多。
such as
那我们的
from
这这一
biology,
节
from
提到的是我
neurology,
们是以神
and
经科
share
学的知
about
识跟喉经的科
the
学知识
viewpoints
来彰显人类
of
意识跟信念的重要哈。那今
of
天真的很高兴，
Buddhism
因为千头
sutras.
万绪的时
Now,
候，
I cannot
上
go
师
into
傅一
too
直
much
导
detail
读，
on that,
有时候蜻蜓
unfortunately,
点
because
水
of the
点到
time,
为
but we
止
just
哈，
mentioned it
所以各
very
位只要听到一
briefly
些点就可以了哈。
overview. In the
那我们今天在
Prajnaparamita
华经在
Sutra,
上面
we
讲
talked
心无
about
一如空有不无
uh,
哈。我们的般若经
the
是它
emptiness, which
着
is
重提到哈，
also
这是表示
the
因缘
uh,
法来谈
the
谈
cause
人
and
生的真
effects.
理法则哈。但是我们
When
另
we
外一
are
头的
working
时
on
候哈，
just the
唯识的系统，
consciousness in
它着
in the
重提到
Buddhism,
现
it
象，
is
它在分析
an
因缘
analysis
所导
of the
致
cause and
果报的
effects
现象。
of karma and the fruits from
那
these
心经其实各
interactions.
位可以看到，心经讲无无明，亦无无明
The
尽，无老死，亦无老死尽。它
the
省
in
略
the
了
heart
很多哈。
in
那
the
我从
heart
12因缘根
sutra,
来解
there's
何种因缘
mention
到如是嘛哈。那这
of
些都是空有
emptiness,
的
how
哈。所以
there
师父
is
讲
no
五蕴皆空，
no
色空无
ignorance
我
and no
哈。那
end,
事实上在这个
and
文中有
as
提到
to the point that there
科学
is
跟
no
佛法
no
跟
aging
神经
and no
系
death
跟
from
心
age.
经跟唯识把它做一个分析跟结合。当然这是推论，不一定是正确的哈。甚至到
And
第八
as
章就
we
推论到所谓的
as
变
we
动
can
原理。
see from as we have
世
learned
界
from
是
our current
世见世
understanding
界是
that
空，
even
但事实上是
in
世界空
our
空，
eighth
但事实上世界是有的
eighth state of
这样子哈。
consciousness
那我
is
们在讲到无我是
is
什么
a
哈？各位都
relationship
知道我们的元
to
素要诞生，
our
要
our
安定，
view
才
on
能够去
multiverse
达到圆
nowadays.
满意
Now
思。
that is yet to
那
be
刚才
proven, but we can
莲
see
师也
these
讲说，元素
correlations
就在我们里
coming
面，是
into
我们每一个人都来自
into
这里哈。
play.
我们没有一个元素，身
So
体造
what
成的
is
每一个
to
元素也是
be
没
to
有一
be
个
a
是自己产生
selfless?
的。
About
所
selfless
以我们的
is
元素的产生就
us
是
in a
由大
cosmic
宝里有
aspect.
几万亿个
When the element
然后
was
再开始
born, the
合成印
temperature
成超新星的结
is
合，然后这元素又
unimaginable.
飘离
So
到我
all
们
the
地球
elements came
形成
from
地球，然后再
the
形成我
galaxy
们
during
地球
that
的
great
我们现在
explosion.
的生命哈。所以没
In
有一
our
个元
human
素的元
body,
素
our
是从地
ele-
球产生的哈。
there are
我们也是一个无我的概
99%
念。
of it is
那我们
just the
人体的元素哈，大
the
概
basic
六种，
six
大概占
elements:
90%，
oxygen,
四种占
carbon,
90%了哈。
hydrogen,
水、氧、
nitrogen.
碳、氢、氧、
Now,
氮嘛哈。
even though
那
they
其他的
consist
元
of
素就是微量元
96%,
素，这
there's
个为什么？各位如果在这里
also
都知道，
uh,
这些微量元素
plenty
都
of
跟我们
room
生
for
命
essential
在气候
elements
跟我
such
们
as
神经系
phosphorus,
统有直
calcium,
接的连接
sulfur,
关系，
etc.
都
And
跟
as
我
we
们
all
的
know
免疫
that
系统有
these
关
are
系。
things that we
那所有
cannot
的元
live
素都很
without.
重要，都是我们生
And
命
all
的
of these
活水哈。
elements are
那我们
not
在这里组成
born
我
or
们的
made on
所以
Earth.
我们
It
的
all
身体
came
其实都
from
来自神经，
the
来自
universe,
元
the
素，不是
galaxy
我们
that we
从
are
地球
in,
产
or
生
the
的。
universe that we are in.
好，所以我们都知道，我们的生
So
命不是
life
只是我
is
们
not
生
just
到
a
死之间而已，
does not
它
just
是出一个
begin
完整
from
的构成。
birth
我们
to
的
death,
DNA，
but
我们的
rather it
基因里
is
面就记载我们所有的
rooted
元
in
素，
the
所以这些
relationship
物
between the
理化的现
universe
象不
and
停的
Earth.
所谓的基因的演化都记载在我们
So
的基因里面。
our
那
life,
我们的身
the
体上面
birth
的
of
元
our
素跟原
life,
子都是来自宇宙
started
的啊。所以
in
我
the
们的生
universe
命其实是源
and
自于
passed
宇宙
down
的
to
本身的
Earth
历史哈，
and
从创始
to
之初
where
一
we
路来
are
到
right
我们
now.
啊。所以我们是从宇宙的无声
And
无
when
息，
all
这些元
the
素都是无声
elements
的，然后就
align
生
that
我们的地
created
球上
us.
这个因缘里
So
面
we
合
always
而来组
hear
成我们地球的一个
from
永恒
our
生命哈。
we
所
always
以以前我
hear
们在科
from
学上说
when
一生
watching
后事
TVs.
如何
Now
决
they
定
always
是
say
我
to
们
be
的生命，
continued
但是我们要把
and
连
to
埋下
know
去，觉得土葬最好哈。那土
to
葬
be
的后面会
continued.
蛇
Well, it's
啊、
just
老
like
鼠来咬，
our
才会
bodies.
分
When
解
our
哈。所
bodies
以你要知道你的后事如
when
何，
we
你就
die
要
and
到地
becomes
下的时候
buried
会分解
or we
哈。
start to
所以事实
decompose,
上我们都知
it
道，
is not the
人的
end
生
of
命就
life,
是
but
说
rather it could be
入
a
土就
beginning
会
of
落
another
回
one
来嘛
because
哈。
as it
入土以后还有
decomposes,
很多
all
的事
these
要完成，
elements
环
gets
境条
returned
件
and
风
gets
解
reused and
哈。
rebuilt to
所以我们的活法的生态
future
圣经
beings.
就告诉我们，一切众生就是从无声中万界生
As
灭
we
创
learn
造
from
中
different
唯一
sutras,
的
is
真实。
that
那
our
那个
heaven and
经文
earth
也告诉我
are
们，天地
share
所
the
有的
same
万
root as
物，
I
万
do.
物以物为本所有的我们的天地所有的原子所有的
All
物质，
life
无论
and
在哪
I
一个
share the
时空，
same
都是跟我
body,
们
and
同在，
because
万物都跟我们是一体的，组
we
成一
all
个
come
元素
to
意识
get
来
come
组
from the
成
same
世界。
elements.
那再来就是唯识在讲三界
And
唯
in
心，
the Heart Sutra,
万法
when
唯
we
心
talk about
所以
the
我们会去
consciousness,
信
it
奉
is
唯
about
识信
how
希望唯识信奉为
our
明跟真常唯心
or
就像我
emptiness
讲的，我们都知道
come
我们所谓的
comes
所谓的
from
色声香味哈，
being
都会受
fulfilled,
到这个
and
传递
how
所
our
传递的
heart
地方，
and
是不是
our
我前面
brain
所
can
言
vibrate
说的这
together,
几
work
个部分
together.
哈？那个听之耳、
The,
见
the
身
five
知哈，
senses
这
that
个
we
其
all
实各位
know,
可以看到，
it
这些都是
started
所
in
谓
the
实验
cortex,
的
or as we know,
模式跟
in the cortex of our
听视
brains.
所谓的武术哈，
And
它是怎么
even
样形成
our
的？
sight
那各位都
is
我们都
just
很知
a
道说，
receiver
其实就是我
for
们手机有
electromagnetic
连接
waves.
收器的部
Even
分，
the
所以我
visible
们
in the
在所
grand
有的这个
spectrum
电磁波
of
所谓
electromagnetic
的
waves
可
are
见光就是电磁波，我们
the
看到
colors,
只
the
是一
light
条
that we
非常
see. It's
狭窄
only a
的一个
very, very
范
small
围而已。
sliver,
那
a
比较
very,
像红
very
外线、紫外线那种
narrow
光我们
spectrum.
完全看不到，但是很多
So
动
the
物看得
blue
到，
that we
它们感
see,
知的
is
有
it
时候跟我
really
们不太
blue?
一样。
Is it just
那我们看到
because
这个东西，我们
just
看到说，我
because
看着
this
蓝色
is
的
the
衣服，
color that
那
we
事实上它真的是
receive
蓝色的
from
吗？那只是因为
the
我们看到是因为
the
我们
the
神经
clothes, we
系
see
统
them as
接收
blue,
到环
but
境
in
的这个东
reality
西。
the
那事实
the
在受
clothes
伤
that
的人
they're
有没有
wearing
吸收？
absorb the
有
different
关会
wavelengths,
吸收了
and
几
does
次
not
才会变成
reflect.
蓝色的。如
So
果它
when
吸收的是
everything gets
是
absorbed,
蓝
it becomes
色跟
black.
绿
When
色的，就
nothing
会
gets
变成黄
absorbed, it
色的。
becomes white.
那如果全部都不
So
吸收，就
it
变成
comes
白色的；
to
全部都
our
吸收，就
rods and
变成蓝色的。
cones and how
那事实
sensitive they
上只是
are
因为
and
到了
how
我们的
they receive these signals
视
and
锥细
turn
胞
that
里面
into
的一些敏
signals
感
in
度，
our
然后变成电磁波
neurotransmitters
转到我们的
in our
里面。
brain
它是
and
未来是
show
怎
us
么样，我们不知道，
what
只是因为我
colors
们人类的
that
眼睛
are
才会变
present.
成这样子而已哈。所以我们就很清楚，这是
In
我
the
视
Diamond
觉的模式
Sutra, it
哈。
says that
所以金刚经告诉我
all
们，所
things
有
that
东
take
西哈，
form
让我们大脑来
is
创造我们的
unreal
现实，我们
because
的所有的
our
五识都
brain
是情报
created
的
our
语言。这个
reality.
大脑是我们的神经系统，我们的
We
听
the
觉、
world
视
we
觉
live in
来产
only
生的，
exists
那大脑来
in the
创造我们
societal
的
structures
现
of our
实
brain.
哈。那我们机制只有在人类大脑的社
What
会现实
and
中，
to
我们在
everyone,
其他
to
的
all the
地方，我
animals
们
or
所看
different
到的
living
东西是
beings that
不
we
一
see,
样
the
的。我
forms,
们所看到的
the
的
shape,
形象也
they
不
may
一样
take a
的。
different form than
所以
how
我们
we recognize it.
更糟糕
And
的是，我们
ironically,
从来没有
us
意识到，
humans
我们就是
never really
在创造这个
taken
虚拟
that
世界真实的世
understanding to
界哈。
heart.
我们真的不了解，我们真是希望为是哈。
So
所以这是人类以
the
星空文明
emptiness
来
that
创造
human
文明，
created,
其实是最
that
伟大的一
created
个艺术
the
哈。那也是我
civilization
们
from,
用来
it's
推进式的
also
公式的
the
哈。所以
tool
这个
that we
都是很
use
多人类的演化的进程哦，导致
to
我们有很
against
多
each
的
other
物理世界
and
有这
even
样的东西哈。
control
我们是
the
用这个来
evolution or
让我们进
development
步
of
哈。那
humankind
各位可以看到，我们所谓的
and
生物变
ultimately
成
may
不理
lead
性
to
的
our
罪恶
own
哈，战争、火
demise.
轮上、人性泯灭、贫富不均、恐怖攻击、战争、杀戮、社会动荡、
And
生
as
死
we
矛盾，
see
这
all the
都是所
different
谓的人类的性空为名所造成的哈。我们
issues, the
希望的是说，
societal
在人类
issues
是
that we
希望
face
哈，
in our world
制
today,
造一个美
all of
好的
them
自己的
can
社
bring
会哈，
about
制
to
造一
our
个
own
自己美丽
destruction.
的社会哈。所以佛法
So
基本上是以
ultimately,
心为本位，心为
that
物的统一哈。所以佛法来
it is
推
based on the
来
heart,
跟
just
普能
like
量所谓
Buddhism
的
it
心跟
is
思想要跟脑筋
based
进
in
入
the
一
heart
致哈。所以
by
身心相依，
taking
心入一如，我们要求
what
证
we
心的
think, our
确定
heart
性，包括
and the
动作、心
matters
态、信念的建
together
立、
and
精力的
combining
掌握、
with all
心
the
念的
different
调整哈。
understandings from
我今天没有
different
办法详细谈哈。
from quantum
所以
mechanics,
第四
from the
节就
string
谈到内
theory,
在的内
from
经哈，这是
from
我们的
informations and neurology,
所
we
谓的
all
雷声
bring
所
it
谓的依
together
附在我们
under the
的
understanding
灵
of
魂的
Buddhism.
改变哈。那所以来透过佛法来诠释实际与社会的实践哈，来不
So
断的来
coming
阐释人类生命
to
的价值与意义
coming to
哈。
the book, we also
那这
asked
里面
about
其实在讲说
what
社会的
is
治理
what
和
what makes what
为
makes
何生
us
人，人生
human.
的意义在哪
What
里？
why are
何
we
谓
born
生
as
为
human?
人，
What
人生
is
的
the
本质是什
purpose
么？是
of
什么
the
来制造
life
人生
and
的？
what
何
is our
为人生？
goal
人生的现象是什么？
from
人
our
生为
living?
何？人生的目的是什么？
And
是不
that
是
is
都一
what's
样？但是只是我
what
们
I
用那个
talked about on
视角不同
the
而已
chapter
而已哈。
4.
我想第四
As
节
we
就
know
会
in
讨论
Tsuji,
这
there
个
are four missions and 8
那我们
Dharma
最后会
Prince,
讨论到
and it's
十跟
all
十跟
about
八印，都是上人大法
hearing
师人
sufferings
生
and
净
relieving
土行愿
sufferings
行
and
升观光行利济众生哈。
to
所以刚才也提到大舍菩萨哈，
to
我们可以看到我们
resolve
大舍
and
菩萨哈，光是我
any
们的
misunderstanding
前
our ignorances as well as benefiting others.
艰深大题来教育孩子哈。所以像这样的情况之下，让我们的医学生来认识身体。
And I share with you all about the silent mentors, how they are able to share their very intricate bodies and offer that as a introduction to the wondrous world of human physiology for our doctors so they can train.
就像白鹿一山尽一样哈。所以我们很多师兄师姐晚生以后迎遍东子极天涯哈，他
And
们
we
快马
see
加鞭
that
来到
a
师
lot
父
of
大
our
仙跟
silent
着神要
mentors,
道
they will
因为
come
他们
at once after their death or within 8 hours to arrive there. And even though they passed away, they still leave their legacy and to help. Even at the end of their life, they are protecting and enriching a new lives that are to follow. So this is the view of human, I mean, on Tzu volunteer on life, how to understand that there is no self and be at ease both in life and death, and how to reduce our little self, our personal desires, and find refuge in Jingsi, as also as expanding ourselves and benefiting the world through Tzu. Now, a lot of people may question Tzu and asking why Tzu always praised Buddha as the world enlightened one, because Tzu volunteers are the enlightened ones because the understanding of Buddha from 2,500 years ago, before the birth of modern science, he was able to understand and create these theories that we're just starting to rediscover. So ultimately, what is our Dharma lineage? It is a combination of the great and the small vehicles. How do we understand and the truth as well as the understanding of the world, as well as bring together Buddhism and the science. As we all know that truth could be ultimate. The things that happen, as we know that cause and effect is a absolute relation. A lot of people may ask us what is our Dharma lineage and what is the practice of Tzu. And this is my understanding of how we are learning to to purify ourselves, and then from there we benefit the world with the great vehicles. And from the absolute relations, we learned about the cause and effect of the world, such as the different values that we may see from the different people that we encounter. And at the end, it is also a understanding of or a fusion of Buddhism and science, because what we are doing is a real life experiment of science. So our Tzu volunteer is very fortunate and also tasked with very hard work. So thank you all for listening today.
好，非常感恩执行长，请站哈。来，这些请你们不要浪费时间哦。来，这些拿着您自己的书。
And
对。
lastly, we'd like to invite our sewing clubs to stand alongside our CEO, because they really admire him but don't have the opportunity to be so close to him. So fortunately, they are here today for their sewing. They are not here just to join our study group, but rather to teach those who are here to learn. So I invite everyone, if you have the opportunity, to come and check out their work, see if there's something that you like, and also how to benefit those who need help. And here are some of the feedbacks we have received from our listeners about how our CEO is so full of wisdom and very insightful sharings and teachings.
很想要这本书，你本身没有，待会桌上的真的可以带回。就我们美国跟海外的团队跟大家结缘， 好，那这边我们的加拿大管心理说，用心聆
And
听
this is
为
from
所当为
our
失韵者的
feedback
口才
from
不
Canada,
起的王子心
how
长，
they
条理
would
清
need
楚
a
的
lot of
英
time
文口
to
段，但有
regurgitate and
智
really
商分享
really
学习
understand
花
what
更多的时间来
this,
慢
our
慢体会细
CEO
细的访
is
视，
trying
仔细观察才能有所领悟哈。
to
那我们的管心灵世界
to clarify in the
3
book.
月13日，加拿大来8位，他会前来。那这本
So
书我
if
也
you're
会
able
给你
to
参考
read
哈，好不
this,
好
you'll definitely
但是你
find
觉得在翻阅当
some
中，
new
你觉得可
understanding.
以解惑。那在这边我们日本的陈静会说，很开心今天听到一个秘密，原来有不少人也是一样，很爱读执
Now
行长的书，但是常常看不懂。书拿起来，
the more you read it, the many times that the more times you read it, the better
但
understanding
是总是多
of
看
these
几次，
topics
不晓
that
得
you
六
will
兽
be
师姐
from the
你
book.
翻阅有什么感觉哈？所以在这边赤峰的内蒙赤峰的恩利说，敬佩执行长每一部著作，有幸拜读，千金不嫁
Our
做
viewer, our listener, sharing how encompassing this book is and bringing in all the different information all together under
留一
one
本给
cover.
你，请诗经回来带回去内蒙给你哈。所以我们真的非常的感恩哦。就云南那个小明他说，天王执行长的分享就是一场视觉听觉的享受，百听不厌。执行长如一本厚厚的宇宙与佛法相融的书，信手拈来。他写1年
And one of the listeners sharing that how they are how these books seems to be so effortless, but in reality, it took him a year to make this book. After consulting 41 different texts, and all of the books that we have today will have his signature.
总之我们非常感恩所有好的因缘，然后全部来高雄现场读书。刚才大家还记得问我说，你怎么邀请到执行长的？觉得
Now, someone has asked that how I was able to invite the CEO to join us, and I'm very grateful because he thought that we are here truly, mean something. So he has vowed to come back every year if he can.
执行长也谢谢我们真贤群团队，幸福你们了。你看我们的怡珍举个手，嘉义大林慈院的哇，做好多做，他好开
So
心。
coming back to my slides here.
以后再分享，真的好感恩，谢谢。好，请回到我的
So
简
here
报，
it
请回
is
到我的简报。
a Netflix video talked
那这一个就是
even
一个
in
Netflix 的叫人
talked
人
about
知识的影片，
experiments
它是由
on
小明介绍
twins
给大家，
and
可以
how they may
跟
differ
知道
eating
双胞
a
胎
vegetarian
实
diet
实
versus
验
a
是
non-vegetarian
温馨的
diet.
结果，
For
分享
those
哈。那
the
像